What got you started with true crime?
So, kind of a little bit, there's a lot of different routes that were calling me to talk about it. I think the main one was I grew up just watching like Dateline. And so, like, I had all this useless knowledge, as I like to say it. And there was just one day that I was sitting there, and I do like at my previous job, I would always work with like brands and kind of like revamp them and like get them more out there and get like more following and engagement. And I was kind of sitting there, I was like, why don't I do this for myself? And so I just was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna have no pressure. And so I honestly just had a day where I was talking about a random case and it just kind of like blew up. And I was like, okay, like I think I'm gonna keep doing this. And I think another route that really made me want to talk more about true crime was when the Gabby Petito case was blowing up. I noticed that everyone was talking about it for a time, and which is great. I think any publicity is good publicity, especially whenever it's a case that's active and needing answers. And I also noticed that there were other cases that were not getting as much attention. And so whenever I was thinking of like a name and like what I should like call the podcast, so to speak, I really wanted to target more so people who had crimes that were swept under the rug, kind of like people who had like family members who knew that got like murdered and then the police didn't do anything about it and media wasn't covering it. I wanted to try to attempt to bring that to light and bring more attention on those cases that didn't get as much attention. Granted, I still talk about like, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and stuff like that because I think those cases are just as interesting as the ones that don't get as much attention, but my heart and soul goes towards that. So that's kind of what really started everything.
Have you seen anything come of the cases that you've brought to light, so to speak?
There was one case, it's actually in my pinned on TikTok. It's probably, it was one of the second or third cases that I really kind of brought to light, so to speak. And it was the case of TJ Davis. I'm very close knit with his mother, Shira Davis. And when I made that video, her account, I kind of just want to be more of like a segue to that person's account. And so I know that her account grew really like substantially with like followers and stuff like that. And she has a lot of like sit-ins and fundraisers and stuff like that. So whenever it did that, I like to think in my mind that hopefully some people, gave to her and stuff like that. So I have seen like people get traction over to other people's accounts, but I've not seen anything where people are like, oh, this case was solved and justice was served. I've not had anything like that, but I would love to hopefully bring a family justice one day.
So you have a huge following on TikTok. What is your podcast all about and what is it? And I just want to hear more about your podcast.
Yeah, so essentially the TikTok and like podcast is the same thing. I love listening to longer podcasts. However, my family, they love shorter stuff that kind of gets to the point. And so my goal was mainly to just do like 1 minute videos that try to give you all the valuable information because I'm aware that I can't go into too much detail in under a minute. And so like the podcast in general is mainly just like short, straight to the point. I've seen on TikTok where some people will have a story and they do like 10 separate videos and like 10 different parts, which is great. But me personally, I'm like, I don't have time for this to keep going through the videos. And so I always try to keep it all into one video. There's been very few times that I've had to split it up. If ever, I think it was before TikTok even did their 3 minute change. So that's kind of what it is now. And honestly, like I said before, I mainly just talk about anything true crime that's happening. Whatever is floating in my brain that week, I'm like, I'll talk about it this week. So it's very unorganized, some might say, but I'm just kind of all over the place with it.
And then what do you think out of all of the things that you've covered, what is the crime that stands out the most to you that you just think about all the time?
Um, Honestly, I think the TJ Davis case was very, especially because I got to speak with his mother. That one kind of like set a different, I guess it came to me differently than other cases would, because I actually got to speak with somebody who knew someone that was like a victim of a horrific crime. Whenever it comes to other cases, there's one that I actually just researched, and it's on the Catherine Knight case. And it's about, oh, it's the first lady in Australia who got life in prison. And she had a boyfriend, and her boyfriend had two children, and they were all living together. And one day she just like snapped and like stabbed her boyfriend to death. But what was crazy was she then like cut him up and then cooked him and was going to serve his children their father, which like who does that? Who even thinks about that first and foremost? Like, oh, I'm gonna do that. Like, I just when I read that, I kind of was like, is this real or is this fake? Like, it's so crazy, honestly.
And then do you have any other like future goals and aspirations with what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I've kind of trickled since I'm out of college now. I have a little bit more free time. I've been I started a new TikTok that's separate from Crime Brought to Light. And it's basically more of like paranormal stories. I really love like scary stuff. So I also have more of like useless information about that. So I was like, might as well talk about that too. I also would really like to get more into YouTube and work on doing longer videos. I'm not used to talking for long periods of time, especially because like I stutter after so long. So I'm like, oh, I don't know if a long video would work for me, but I'm definitely gonna try to do YouTube more as well.